Okay, Eric, if you want to kick off.
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the third of these SFN webinars to mark World Food Day. We've had two really interesting sessions for the first two webinars, and I'm sure this afternoon will be equally fascinating. And today we're going to hear from two researchers working on developing technologies aimed to improve vertical farming and explore how vertical farming is a key contributor to building circular economies. So I'll pass over now to Sonal, who's going to be our chair this afternoon.
Thank you, Eric. And I'm just trying to look at if Chungwi is able to join. I guess not. Welcome everyone. I'm Sonal Chaudhary and I'm a PI for STFC Food Network. As Eric mentioned, today we are hosting this webinar. It's the third webinar in the series of World Food Day. And it is on the new production systems. And what better than vertical farming to start with, looking into the new production systems. So that's the innovations in vertical and urban farming. And to start with, we have Professor Peter Ball from University of York. He would be presenting vertical farming within local circular economy. So over to you, Peter.
Thank you very much. I'll share my slides in a minute. First of all, one thing I must emphasize is I'm representing multiple teams here. So the main content comes from, I'm shaping this presentation around, is from an SFN project on the same subject of local circularity, and it's also part of a wider project on Fix Our Food. So I must remember to do all the credits as I go through this. Right, slide sharing. Okay, I want to present on vertical farming within the local circular economy, and I want to bring a number of different concepts together and show you what we've been doing on this area, and I will welcome your comments and discussion at the end. So first of all, I want to look at urban centres, city centres and town centres, and I'm going to say some really obvious things to you here, like these places are where people live and where they eat and where shops are. Possibly not as many shops as there used to be, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But one thing I really want to emphasize is often we think of centres in the modern age within countries like UK as a place of consumption rather than production. So whereas around the world or decades ago within the UK used to see production going on quite central to these centres. But if you look carefully enough, there is production going on, and that area where you've got both production and consumption in proximity gives some potential for doing some interesting things. There's no accident I'm showing you a picture of York here, and I'll explain it a bit more in a minute. But for those of you who know York, I'm going to go and can correct me on my geography. This is the Piccadilly area of the one side of the city centre, and there's a shipping container complex in the centre of there, and I'll come back to that in a bit. Now, I am hoping the left-hand side of this you've seen many times before, and many of you can explain in much better ways than I can. I will explain it very briefly for those who are not familiar with the circular economy or this type of diagram. Basically, it's split between what you could call technical resources and natural resources. But we have this idea of loops, and the shorter the loop, the better. So the shorter we can circulate goods around, the better. We don't want to be recycling if we don't have to, but if that's the only thing we can do, that's what we do. But ideally, we reuse or maintain or share these resources. Why I'm saying that is these diagrams give a view of, we want these loops to be short, but often saying nothing about place, about geography. And what I'm really interested in, and how this project I'm about to talk to you about developed, was about place-based loops and keeping really short loops geographically, as well as in this conceptual way of maintaining value. So what you're seeing on the screen is all about short loops to maintain the maximum value of resources. And we're really interested in, can you do that in local areas as well? So some of you might have gone to this place in York. Some of you might have eaten in this area of York. It's called the place is called Spark York, and there are a number of shipping containers all put together doing different things. So they'll be selling interesting foods, and you can buy the food and go and sit in the central area. You might be listening to a speech or whatever, a comedian, or you might be part of an entrepreneurial community there. Now, this farm, there's no coincidence that picture I showed you before. This farm that you're seeing here is part of the Fix Our Food project within York, and this Fix Our Food is a big multi-partner project spread across the UK. But really, that project is looking at the entire food systems and trying to make changes for it that benefit everyone in a very broad sense. And then we're focusing on taking one particular aspect and thinking about local circularity around here. So one person is here. I'll make a special mention of Alana, because she's part of the audience today. She's one of the key people who run this farm. And what our project that was using the Fix Our Food work to date was, could we use spaces like this, but also wider spaces within urban centres for production? And we do a lot of productive things in centres. We have breweries, we have restaurants that they transform food, and this is an example of a container farm, a vertical farm that is growing leafy greens. So can we capitalize on the fact that we're producing things? Can we circulate things in urban centres? And one thing I want to challenge is that we often think big is beautiful. Factories are big, cities are getting bigger and bigger, and more people are going to cities. And we've got this, I'll get into trouble for this, we've got this mindset that big is economic and successful and small is uneconomic. And yet city centres thrive, or have done to date. But why can't small be possible? We've already got lots of shops, we've got microbreweries in our centres. Why can't we do other things? And we do have some very small factories, and I'll talk about that next. So our project was a particular aspect of looking at local reuse, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a minute. But taking this example of a farm, perhaps by having local production, whether it's foodstuffs or other things, perhaps we can utilize local waste, perhaps we can be efficient. We'd have to explore in more detail for each circumstance whether we reduce carbon, but that would be the objective, to reduce the carbon impact and have more employment locally. The average large production facility, whether it's production of agricultural goods or more technical goods, happens in big places, often outside urban centres. So that's the first thing. The second thing is micro factories do exist. Some of them are mobile, and the gains that we've made, the advances we've made in digital technologies are making this more and more possible. So this middle picture is a picture of a factory in a box. This one particularly travels around exhibitions, but you can take canning factories to breweries to can the beer. If you look on Formula One, people have heard this if they've listened to presentations I made before, but if you look at a Formula One racetrack and zoom out whilst the cars are going around on the track, you see a lorry park, and that they are factories. the race teams have brought their factories to the racetrack to make parts, especially at very high speed to get them to the cars. But we've got all sorts of examples around the world where we make things in very small factories. And Chungui will talk about digital twins in a bit, but I'm going to talk about digital twins, but in a different way. We both talk about digital twins, but we're at very different scales. And the example on the right is, on the left-hand side, you've got a real production system, then an engineer in the middle controlling the digital model. There's an exact replica, and you can try things out on the right-hand side. So this is a project funded by the STFC Food Network Plus, and we were interested in vertical farms. And vertical farms are no surprise. They make goods. They grow products that can be used in restaurants. Unfortunately, I get a reputation for maybe doing too much work with breweries. Also, there's breweries in urban centres, and they can also supply restaurants. But ignoring that sort of all those grey lines and grey boxes, what we were really interested in is, can we take waste from restaurants? And this picture here in the centre is the idea is an IntelliDigester that takes food waste and will convert it into something very useful at a very small scale. Next one down is from Wasware. They take brewery waste, spent grain or other agri-food wastes, and they can convert it into bioresin and then create products out of it and potentially be used in the construction of the outfitting of vertical farms. So if we've got restaurants and breweries producing waste, and we've got technologies to make things on a small scale, perhaps we can feed the vertical farms, and perhaps we can even build or help in the construction of vertical farms in the first place. I mentioned digital twins, and Chungui will mention digital twins next. But if you've got a lot of data, and he will talk about data too, then potentially you can do some analytics, and you can draw on data from perhaps public data sources, perhaps the restaurants, perhaps the breweries, and from the IntelliDigesters and from Wasware, who can produce these material products and so on. And we can try and optimize this system and make the most of all the resources that are locally and circulate them locally. The analytics is one thing that we need to do more work on to work out whether this is a good thing or not. So we need to try it and analyze it and do some modeling to work out what the advantages and disadvantages are of this. Because there could be negative effects of doing this type of thing. Whilst it might seem great that you're using the waste, there could be challenges of whether it's the right use of waste and so forth. But that analytics will help us model either in real time or in advance what can go on. The team at the bottom that has worked on this project is listed there. So we've got a whole variety of collaborators, and we're coming to the end of our project now, and we've had successes in looking at nutrients and looking at conversion of waste. In one case, we processed York brewery waste to create board. So I thought I'd put that to you, that there's an opportunity to use urban centres not just for leisure, not just for transactional buying of things, but also making of things, and using the principles of the circular economy, getting things moving around locally, and potentially providing more employment. I'm not going to say too much more because I want to round up. Looking forward, there's a number of things that we want to look at about what wastes are out there. So we've got to find a way of finding those resources, and perhaps using public data sources as a way. Once we've got those wastes, turning them into valuable products, and then thinking about how big is a productive centre, and where we could build these productive operations, because we know there's certain parts of city centres or town centres economy that is in decline, whereas other parts are booming. And I've mentioned digital just now. There's a video either scan it with your phones, or copy the very meaningful web link down, and you can find out a lot more about our project. I think I don't want to say any more. I'm welcome for questions. I'll hand back to Sonal whether we move to Chung-Wei or take any questions now. But thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Now we'll take questions before moving to Chung-Wei here. So if there are any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or post it on chat while others are speaking. So yeah, I'll just wait for a minute if there are any questions. Else I have a couple of questions. Anyone from the audience?
Blinking on technology. I'll put our video in chat.
Okay, yes. Yeah, so I think it's just a couple of minutes video. It's very nice, summarizes what the project is doing very well in a small amount of time. Okay. So I'll kick off if that's okay, Peter. So it's really fascinating to see, like, you know, something of this can actually happen at a local scale, which is what actually circular economy should be promoting, and not like, you know, generating waste in one region and maybe doing something else of the waste in completely other countries or so. So that's quite helpful to know. Has this project been able to actually map the exact environmental impact that we can obtain from being circular at a local level?
Always on mute. That's a really challenging question, an excellent question. No, we haven't, and that's something that we're really conscious that we must do, because whilst in that very small scenario that we that I put onto that slide and took you through, that's just a microcosm of what could go on, and we need to look at it more broadly and understand what the impact of what we're suggesting would do, but also then compare it to what would happen if we didn't do it, you know, or what are the, and it maybe goes beyond our capabilities, but what are the alternatives of what you could do? So there's the as is now, we're suggesting a new to be situation, but potentially there's others as well. But I think it would be irresponsible to go down this route without having a really comprehensive view of having understood whether you can do it in the first place, whether that you then continue with it. But yeah, so the evaluation is really important and would be the next stage of what we look at.
No, that's great, especially because, like, you know, if we if you can present us the model of how it can be done at like a local level, I guess it could be grow it York, grow it at Leeds, grow it Sheffield, like, you know, anywhere literally. And it would be nice to just have a understanding of like what sort of environmental impact we can have from these small scale vertical farming.
Yes,
local level. Yeah.
and Chung-Wei will go through this, but he'll talk about the comparison between using vertical farms and not, and the impact of just having those. But we're also conscious of, we're suggesting certain routes for the bio-wastes, and you know, we've got to think about both the impact of the operations to convert, but what happens to that material afterwards, not just immediately, but in the years ahead, but also what were the other routes that it could have gone down. Yeah,
sure. There is a question on the chat. Elisa, if you want to ask, or I can read out the question as well. That's not a problem.
yeah, no, go ahead. I'm about to give you a holding answer, but you know, carry on, because I think it's a really interesting question.
No, it's sorry, because I'm sharing the office. I have the headphones. Is fine. No, I'm really interested, especially, you know, because we're looking into nutrient alternatives, and I was very keen to see from the different food waste that you have using the IntelliDigest system, what nutritional value you get from that regarding, because I mean, I know from other systems where we have fish, you know, a mixture, you know, you always still have to top it up. It's not always quite enough. But if you found if there was any biostimulant properties from that resource, or simply used as a nutrient input. Thank you.
This is where I'm going to say that question is way beyond my expertise, and I'm really not going to attempt to answer it. But there are two people who could, and maybe even Chung Wee can answer it. Ife Kanu and Nicola Holden from IntelliDigest, as well as SRUC. They would be the people who would be able to answer that one for me, for you. So I'm going to say, I don't know, I'm sorry, but I will relay that question. That's important.
Can I say a little bit about stimulants for the vertical farming? And this is a very interesting point. So at the moment, lots of vertical farming, we use the hydroponic system without the soil. But we found it still some problem there, because lots of beneficial, like bacteria, they're useful for the soil, for the crops. But how, like a mycorrhiza, how they can apply to the hydroponic system? So it's some research is started and to check it, put like biostimulants in, they can add into the hydroponic system, what happened with that. And also I'm going to talk a little bit about the nanoparticles, how coating different nutrients, micronutrients, vitamin B12 into the nanoparticles, and then put in the hydroponic system, see how the uptaking from the hydroponic system to the plants. So this is really interesting. I think lots of people, they want to see something kind of the results. So we are trying to do some research on this area. Yeah.
Thanks, Junggi. Are there any further questions? If there are, then yeah, feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, or post it on the chat, and we will pick it up after Chungwee's presentation. Thank you, Peter. Right, we now move on to the second presentation from Professor Chungwee from Nottingham Trent University. He will be presenting on integrated AI, IoT, and phenotyping technologies for improving vertical farming. Over to you, Chungwee.
Okay, can you see my slides?
Not yet.
Now, my computer crashed last time. Hopefully this time is okay. Anyone can see?
No, unable to see the slides, Chungwee. But if you if you want to send it to me, I can share the screen.
I'm quite happy to host if you want, as long as you tell me to. Next slide, please.
Okay, so if you, yeah, I tried some issues here. I don't know why. So I cannot. Okay, I try maybe, yeah, if you can share screen for me, it'll be brilliant. So I just stop sharing. Can you do it for me?
Yep. I just hope that I've got the right one.
Yeah, this is the right one. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you. Sorry about some technical problem. Could you go next? Yeah. I think vertical farming at the moment, there are quite a lot of interest in last 10 years. This is the first guy mentioned about vertical farming is Dixon Despomia from American Columbia University. So after that, they're going quite well. So lots of people tried it with the things, lots of vertical farming increasing scales as well, different countries in terms of Asia countries, the European countries, and also UK, we studied as well. But we're facing really bigger problem now with the vertical farming at the moment, lots of challenges. For example, high energy costing. So maintenance costing quite high. That would put a number 250 kilowatt per energy per year for square meter, and also high capital costs as well. So also the people thinking about the education, the lack of people working in this area. So we really need people know this area. Also the key technology issues, the lack of monitoring, the automations, and also the limited plants can be used. Also we're lacking the system, whole system optimizations, and also limited the scale up. So this is the kind of challenges currently we face. Now, next, please. So what about the research? Is any kind of solutions we can provide for vertical farming? Answer is yes, but still some uncertain as well. But I think one thing in terms of the costing, so I think the people thinking about using renewable energy, using waste heat, CO2, and also we should consider about design the building system is more an energy saving kind of the technologies. I think there are some technologies that are available. Also, I put a digital twin technologies, automations, automatic control system, monitoring system, using the AI, big data to look at the plant's precision control. So this is quite important for crops and vertical farming. Also, last few years, lots of LED lighting research, lots of people see what the recipes is good for different crops, and there are lots of research going on in this area. Today I could mention several things with the plant phenotyping. So this is to give you a huge data to look at the plant growth in real time. So through this data, we can look at it, how responds plants to the different lighting condition, temperature, nutrients conditions. Another point solution, I put a genome editing, because at the moment we don't have a specific indoor farming varieties suitable for vertical farming yet. So this is area, it's open area. So we need to consider about how the breeding genetics that can help to do some the new varieties for breeding. So next, please. Yeah, what has NTU have done this area? So we are using digital twin technologies, AI, big data, to produce lighting recipes, nutrient recipes suitable for industrial vertical farm use. So this is several grants funded by Innovate UK, also our STFC as well. I was lucky we got a grant working in this area. Also nanobubbles and the nanoparticles technologies were applied. Also the nutrients, vitamin B12, other nutrients, so they can provide into the vertical farming. This is the gene editing. Maybe today I don't have time to talk about. Also IoT, and I need to maybe mention a little bit. And next, please. So this is a traditional, like 5 years ago, I look at the LED lighting using different combination of the LED light, red, blue, far red, or green, see how differences. I found it really interesting how combination of the light wavelengths affect plants significantly. So including the maybe flowering, including the quality, flavor. So there we published several papers. But when we have AI, and then I found that AI is much more powerful compared with the traditional recipes. So next, please. Oh, this is the, should we move this first? This is the vertical farming in the UK, what happened in the UK. So this is the, just to show you the globally. So if we look at the column, this showed you since 2017 to 2020-22. So the vertical farming is growing dramatically until 2021 last year, but then investment dropped down because the COVID and all other issues. But if we look at the UK, the trend for investment is keep growing. So you can see this is the UK after post-Brexit. and the COVID, there are lots of investment on the vertical farming area. So click next. Yeah, this is the UK. I look at the data from the vertical farming daily. So I found it now, so far we have 65 vertical farming companies and the vertical farms in the UK now. So lots of people interested, investment money in this area. So they'll give you a few examples next. Yeah, this is several companies like IGS, John's Food Company, and the Green Underground, the Fisher Farm, Let Us Grow. So there are several now, it's increasing now, scales like Green Underground. Now the spread now quite a big scale now, and put a produce to the supermarket and the Tesco and the Morrisons. Yeah, next. So this is the one AI we used my postdoc, Jad. He is working the data science quite a lot. He's brilliant working with the big data. So he's built this model called fuzzy inference the system. So we put a different light wavelengths and lots of results with the plant performance results, conditions put together, and then they built the recipes for the vertical farming lighting recipes. Next, please. So this is a data from phenotyping. So we have one. This is a spectrum, phenospectrum, like a kind of scanner. They can look at the plants growth conditions and growth. This is a kind of by digital biomass, greenness, and all maybe leaf area, how related to the plant's performance. So they all data is real-time data. They can every minute they can give the huge data when we change the conditions, lighting, nutrients, so temperature. So this is really useful for our research using the phenotyping data. Next. So this is the one recipe I just show you example. We produced it for lighting recipe from day 1 to day 12. This is the letters. We can use different every day, different nutrients, and then we can see the plants, its performance is maximized. This is the yields, and also quality is good as well. So this is the really, we tested, validated. So next one. So you can see the photo AI light recipe compared with the control. So you can see plant differences. Look at the plants side. Also the quality as well, we found it. So with the AI protected, it's more accurate, more reliable, the recipes. Yeah, next. So also we're working on the nutrients recipes, because the plants, the hydroponic system, we should put a different 17 elements, the nutrients in. So how the nutrients get more efficient for hydroponic system. So we're using AI, similar technologies, and put a different like input, including the nitrogen, phosphate, potassium. And also we have the monitor system to put a hydroponic monitor all the nutrients in real time as well. So what changes in the nutrients? Then we can using AI algorithms and deep learning and protected the recipes. So next, please. So this is the one we several technologies. One is called ISE sensors for nutrients measurements and in real time. So, and then the right hand, this one is this is the IS sensors, and we can pick up individual nutrients. So what concentration in there, what it changes in real time. And also we have phenotyping machines and to measure the plant growth. So yeah, next one. So this is the one results. We got a recipe based on the different parameters. So then you can see we're using the Hogan control. So that they can find it, the differences using the recipes, what do you request? Yeah, next. So we analyzed the recipes and we found it several recipes that can increase the nutrients use efficiency. For example, nitrogen use efficiency, they can increase 38 to 52%. And the phosphate is a big saving. They can increase in efficiency 60%, and also other nutrients as well. Yeah, next. Also, we're using the IoT monitoring. So our group so have several people working together, and the JAD typically they're working with the sensors. We put all sensors in the box. So the measure temperature, humidity, CO2, lighting, and also other elements as well. So you can measure it and input in the vertical farming system. And then you can see how the environment changes, lighting changes in real time. So this is really good for us for control the system. Yeah, next please. Yeah, also I think that just to quickly concluded the talk. So we I think really want to see how the digital twin technologies can be used further to predict more recipes. This will be really requested by different companies now. Also, we want to develop intelligent control system and also crop growth recipes. Also in this area, we really want collaborations, international collaborations with the different countries in this area. So we have an annual meeting with the Association Vertical Farming. So we tried to solve some issues and get people together, good networks for vertical farming. Yeah, okay, this is I think my talk. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chingwi. Very, very fascinating presentation. Thank you for it. Okay, if you can stop sharing, yeah. Okay, and we have some questions as well in the chat. Rit, do you want to ask your questions, or would you prefer me to read it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can ask my question myself. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Nice talk. I have two questions. With like light, the mechanical environment of plants like wind flow and the thing is also important for their healthy growth. So that's why the plants grown in the controlled environment, so less stiff stems than field grown plants. How we can improve the architectural trait in the vertical farming condition or the indoor condition? And the second question is that also, can we grow cross-pollinated plants in the vertical farming condition?
So sorry, could you repeat your questions? The first question you talk about environment conditions.
So
mechanical environment.
Yeah, I can
please.
probably simplify that. So basically, if we are growing the plant in the controlled environment, their stems are less stiff because they are also impacted through, I guess, the airflow. Is that correct? Yeah. So like light, can you also control the air on the environment in which the plant can grow within the vertical farming conditions? And the second question is related to, can we grow cross-pollinated plants within the vertical farming? Because of course there wouldn't be any bees and stuff.
Yeah, okay, thank you. In terms of the growing environment for vertical farming, so we did quite a lot of research on this area. So how the temperature, humidity, CO2, airflow is very important. So if you don't have an airflow system, it's difficult because plants need CO2 as well. So what I would do is usually the people put the CO2 in there. So you can add in CO2 in there, or maybe amber CO2, you still can use it. But I think controlled environment, you can use in the, because technologies we have now, temperature, humidity, CO2, everything we can control. So this is not a problem. One thing maybe people thinking about the very tall system, so maybe like 20 layers. So how the get equal the airflow into this. This is some challenge because CO2 level is different. So what the people started doing now, so put some of the tube with air like CO2 or oxygen in the root, so they can increase the CO2 for the plants that are taking, and also the oxygen for the root growth. There are lots of things we tested and the growing environment. Yeah, now. So it's a commotion now. So the people are growing underground. So you can see, you can imagine underground. So it's a complete control system. They can get airflow in there. It's not a problem. So put a CO2 in, so they can get a crops. So yeah. So your second question is about is that the plants different?
Cross-pollination.
Oh, okay. I think at the moment, lots of vertical farming growing leafy vegetables. We don't have any problem with the pollinations at the moment, but some people growing in the tomato, so they need flower fruits, other strawberries as well. So to solve this problem, I think people are thinking if larger scales, I saw the Canada, they're using bees, put a vertical farming system, and then they can put a bee in there, 100 bees in there. So move on this one and another one. So also they design some system is a wave, they can shaking the plants, and then they can, the flow, airflow, they can have pollinations as well. So they're doing something if the commercial is possible. I think very funny is the Japanese, they're using the artificial bees and they designed it very tightly and flying into the vertical farming system. I saw it. It's amazing technology.
Wow, thanks, Xingwei. There's a couple of more questions. One from Leslie. Leslie, would you like to ask your question or would you like me to read it out? Okay. I take it as you would like me to read it out. Okay. How is food safety maintained? For example, is the collected water ultra filtered? And is product sold as ready to wash rather than ready to eat?
For vertical farming produce, usually we don't need to wash it because the clean system. So we don't using kind of a pesticide, fungicide for disease. It's a really clean system. But I think sometimes the issue with the system, how there's some bacteria, algae in there. So we use the several different clean system. And you mentioned about the filter. So we had a project with the green underground. We're using nanobubbles, the clean whole system. Because the UK now, the food agency now, it's got a new regulation started from this year. So not allowed using chlorine clean the food system. So we use the filters, biofilters, and also nanobubbles, also using UV light, UVC light, to clean the whole system. So I think now the problem has been solved, though any issues with the contamination now, so for the food.
Okay, thanks, Xingwei. Toby, would you like to ask a question? Okay. If not, I'll ask. So he's asking, have you investigated alternative hydroponic growth mediums?
So we have a nutrient control system. So usually we have a commercial hydroponic system nutrients. You can buy it from the website and the company that provide it. There are lots of research going on how, because the nutrients for every crop, this is not right. So this is why we try to produce the different recipes, nutrient recipes for different crops, for different stages. So sometimes developing stages are different, they request nutrients differently. So this is quite important. We have to find the right nutrients recipes for the different crops.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you, Chungi. And if there are any questions, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. Meanwhile, I can ask or squeeze in my question. So this is for both of you, Peter and Xingwei. And also, I've seen a couple of people here from Innovate UK as well. Have you ever come across? Any vertical farming where they have a combination of vertical farms along with the windmill? So you have the local energy generation like, powering the vertical farming, given that it is so energy intensive. Did you ever come across such a design of vertical farm?
I'll give an initial response, which it essentially dodges the question. So it's a no from me. I think there's some interesting things about using other people's resources. So I know where we're also doing work within the university on the foundation industries, which are incredibly energy intensive. So there's a potential for heat energy, but that's not for vertical farms. It's more for greenhouses, etc. Mm-hmm. But if you look at those types of industries, those foundation industries like paper, cement, and so forth, they've often got spare land around them. So whilst they might not be able to feed off available energy, windmills or whatever other form of renewable power, they could use spare land. So yeah, I'm taking a step back rather than answering the wind turbine question directly. So
yeah, that's fine. I mean, because this was actually this came up with some of my other projects where we were working with a few artists and architect who were actually looking into designing a wind farm or a windmill for providing energy to vertical farming, and it is still in the design concept. They might apply at some stage to Innovate UK funding. So if Andrew and Mariam, if you're listening, then feel free to let us know if this is something of your interest, and we would definitely encourage them to come to you.
Renewable energy will be really good resource for vertical farming. It's like John's Food Company. They use the solar energy for provide all electricity for running it. So this is the also the another project we working with the waste heat and with the CO2 from power station. I think UK have used it now for glasshouse, larger scale in Yorkshire. So they use the waste heat from the power station and then can feed the winter time for the temperature. So this is it works now. I think the wind turbine also, this is a good way. You can put the wind turbine around the vertical farming area. So they could try. I think this is some renewable energies will be good. Yeah, clean energy.
Yeah. Some of the key things that they were discussing is that probably the vibration issues and how much vibrations can actually the vertical farming tolerate, and what sort of impact would that have on the growth of the plants and stuff. So that has still not been investigated. So it needs a bit more research before we actually roll it out. So yeah, that's why I was interested. Like, has there been anything out there where we could learn something from others? Well, if not, then the UK could be one of the first places where they can give it a try. Okay, we have a question from Antoinette. Antoinette, if you would like to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Yes, just two questions. Is there any savings in water in vertical farming, and how is water recycled in vertical farming?
So, Chingwi, would you like to take it? Or
yeah, you mean the water recycled or?
Yes.
Yeah. Usually hydroponic system, aeroponic system is the kind of recycled it. So the plants can use it all the time, and the pump back, pump in, we're using UVC clean system. And then if you like, I think now at the moment, just using EC control the nutrients, the total ions, to see how much the total EC dropped, and then they can add up. So usually maybe once per week, you add in the nutrients in, but sometimes get a problem because this total ion is not accurate. So because the NPK is there, but maybe if every time you add NPK quite a lot, maybe some nutrients maybe kind of is too much, the plants getting sick. So this is happened. So what we're doing now, we tried to thinking using the monitor it, the exact nutrients, in the hydroponic, and then what we needed, what exact amount needed, so they can recognize that and add exact amount of the nutrients at the end instead of the total EC controlled. So this is quite accurate. They also save lots of nutrients as well. The plants are getting better growth. Yeah, so this is recycled it. So if you get some water lost it, and then you just adding a little bit more water in, and I think typically this is a really good saving water. We did research about saving 95% of water. So there are lots of African countries, Middle East, you see this is a really big potential for the agriculture, because save 95% of water.
Okay.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chungwi. I think, Rit, you wanted to share your experience with sound, plant sound vibration?
Yeah. Hello. Actually, my PhD work was on the plant sound vibration interaction. So we noticed that plant used to respond only the ecologically or environmentally significant sound vibration. So you have noticed in 2014 on breakthrough report came if you give the plants, if you treat the plants with chewing vibration of the caterpillars, so it induces its basal different responses, but the application of this technology in the artificial environment has also have some limitation, because plant have memory. If you give, normally the wind causes 1 to 5 hertz of bending per minute, means which corresponding to 300 bendings per minute in natural wind condition. But when plants perceive this kind of stimulation continuously, plants stop reacting that thing. We don't waste the time. So it is very tricky to treat the plants at which vibration will be suitable for plants, because plant memorize and stop reacting.
Oh wow, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And if you do have any publications out there, then feel free to please put the link out in the chat. We would love to read it.
Yeah, this plant memory thing is currently under revision, but the plant sound vibration interactions paper, couple of papers published in scientific reports.
Brilliant.
So I would like to, yeah.
Thanks, Rit. Thanks. That's very useful resource. And thank you, Peter, for answering the question in a different way. But yeah, that's nice to see some examples out there for what is happening at the moment. So yeah, feel free to unmute yourself, have a discussion. We are here for another few minutes. It's just generally nice to know what other people are doing and what their interests are, and how they found these presentations. Okay, yeah, thanks, Rit, for sharing the article. Okay, and if there are any other insights, yeah, okay, there's one more hand.
And I was going to say, Sonal, just to the audience, if you've got examples that add to anything that's being discussed, please put them in the chat and share them with the rest of the audience. So even if you haven't got a question, do share your expertise and your examples in the chat. But anyway, sorry, someone I interrupted.
No, it's okay. No, that was even I was wanting to say that, you know, if you have any comments and examples, if you've seen things working in a better way, please feel free to post your suggestions and comments there. And I see a hand raised from well, I don't have your name. It's written African Inspired. So if you can unmute yourself and let us know who you are and ask your question, please.
Thank you. My name's Yinka, so I'm a bit a bit of a dreamer, I suppose, on this platform. So I wanted to grow plantain specifically in the UK. So I was coming along to see if this would be a method in which I could grow tropical things. So I just wanted to know about that, the use of these processes to grow tropical things in a non-tropical environment. Yeah.
Could I answer this? Or?
Sure. Yes, Chungwi.
In terms of the hydroponic system, aeroponic system, any kind of crops can grow in there. But for vertical farming, if a tropical one, so one is energy costing is very high. Second thing is if very tall, like a banana or something, this is it will be, it's not like kind of the efficiency if we grow in the hydroponic. But I think something we could try. So it's like main crops, for example, rice, also kind of with the maybe wheat, barley, potato, sweet potato. So it's lots of people studied. I heard about China, the growing rice in vertical farming system they call plant factory. So usually growing the field maybe take 5-6 months. But if we're growing hydroponic system in the vertical farming, only 60 days from the seeds to harvest it. So this is the national news in China. So this is to give a big benefit for the climate change. Because the growing the field is not reliable now, so sometimes difficult to get crops in the from field. So I think China found this new variety, the really good variety, growing quite short. But the crops yield is still quite high as well. So I haven't seen this crop rise yet, but once I go back to China, I can see what the details. Also Israel growing the hydroponic system with the 20 layers with the rice. So this is the showed technology in the Milan like 10 years ago in the expo in Milan. So they showed the growing rice in hydroponic system successfully. So I think any, including tropic crops, they can grow in hydroponic system, but just to see how, kind of the costing, high energy costing, and also the space issues. Just to consider about this, Is that answered your question?
Yes, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chungwi. And one more question from me, maybe a bit more naive, because I don't have a proper sort of AI background. How many actually data points do you need to create AI for, like, what you propose as the different sort of AI recipes?
Even more is better. I saw that at the moment we're using every week data for plant growth. So for example, from the phenotyping machine, and they could generate data every day, but in terms of storage problems, the cloud system, because they need to pay more money. So at the moment we're only using the high performance computer IoT platform in the university. So we could produce the data like every month, every week, the data put in there. So I think you're right. If we get more data, maybe recipes more accurate. So but we will see. Maybe heart rate center they can help us.
Definitely. I mean, there are high-speed computing facilities in Hartree Center as well as in Harwell campus. So they can definitely be of help for sure. I can try and connect them.
And jumping in very quickly on that we've used related to vertical farming. We've been doing some modeling, not at the systems level, more just at the farm level, and we've used machine learning, so a type of AI, and some quite simple implementations relatively of AI. So machine learning to optimize a schedule before we run it through the simulator to check that schedule will work. So there's ways of using AI at different levels, both at the plant growth level, but also at the farm management level.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thanks, Peter. Right. Are there any other comments? Okay. Antoinette?
Yes, I just wanted to find out what training does one need to run a vertical farm?
Anyone? Chungi first, you, and then Peter.
So maybe I will. Yeah, I think training is really important because compared with the growing crops in the field, the technology skills quite different. So in terms of training, so we could say it's a kind of how to grow the cultivation, soilless cultivation. So this is training. So the growing system is different. So aeroponic, you can learn aeroponic, hydroponic, and we develop a hybrid aeroponic, hydroponic system. So we can teach people how to use it. So this is the one. And the second one is lighting. So how to control different lighting, automatic control system, IoT. Also, if interesting, was the feature develop the recipes, the AI, big data, training we needed as well. So I think Peter, they can add more.
Peter, you can come from the supply chain angle. So if we grow the things, you need to sell it somewhere as well.
Yeah, I was going to answer it a different way by picking on somebody who's in the audience. And I'm sorry, Alana, you'll hate me forevermore for this. But I think Alana, who has been training somebody recently to run the York farm, might be able to answer the specifics of that question. If you go wider, I think there's an understanding of the sort of systems or the process view of how things move. That as a, like, I think of things in a manufacturing sense. The fact that they've been grown is neither here nor there to me. It's just a sequence, and so there's a bit of training that you can undertake to understand how to capture the sequence of steps that go on, either just within a farm or as part of a supply chain. And some of that training is just generic, and some of it's in software. And sorry, Alana, for dropping you in on that. I don't know whether you can answer the training question of how much.
Thanks, Peter. Alana, would you like to come in? And thanks.
Sorry,
for
I've missed the
sharing,
question. Oh yeah, I was looking at the link for the bananas project that I remembered, and I've missed the question. But if I understood, it's about training. So we develop trainings at the farm that we run, and Peter has shown the pink ship container in there. We've done some trainings in that. So when we set up the farm, we received training for the technology provider. And what we do now is train the trainers. We're just training people as we receive the training. And we have every year, we recycle those trainings as well for the improvements, everything that we have new as well within the farm. As Peter said, we have general trainings as how to run the farm, sowing the seeds and looking after the readings and the conditions that we controlled and so on. And we have other trainings for food production in terms of quality of the product and so on. And those, some of them we do externally with other institutions as the university or FARA, UK agencies and so on. But yeah, there's a range of trainings that we follow, routine and general trainings, and more specific for growing conditions and quality of the product as well, and pathogens and so on.
Thank you.
You're muted, Sonal.
Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. I was just asking, Elisa, would you like to share this with others, or? So you work with the vertical farming. You're muted now.
Oh, am I?
Yeah. You're audible now.
I keep on doing it every so often, not to disturb my colleague. So within vertical farming, we also have several systems here in Newcastle that we're using with a few companies. But one that when you were talking about training, one that we found really useful is with a small company that they're doing their own kind of stackable units. It's been really useful to work with them to train some of our students. And now we have the units here at the university, and the number of students that want to have their dissertation projects, whether at undergraduate, master's levels, or PhD, using the hydroponic units and to trial some of the different things with light or like growing media or nutrient solutions is been really useful. So we've been training them a little bit. But Alana mentioned that you've been doing some training as well, and it would be great if there could be a way to have some kind of best practice that we could share among, some of the people that want to get more into this into this, to have a career, job opportunities in this environment. So I wonder there might be an opportunity to have some kind of network of best practice producers that we can use to then train students across. Are you training students within your university specifically, or much broader?
It was specifically, well, it's not a student, it was not a student anymore, but someone that wanted to build in this career. So we provided kind of a summer training, and he stayed at the farm for 1 month, 1.5 months. And it was kind of immersion training, day by day, working and learning how to run the farm and details of the lights and nutrients and so on. Everything that when we run the farm, these people would be learning as we've learned and we develop the farm. I think it's very nice to keep the collaborations and best practices, because it changes all the time as well. We keep adding new things for the training, and we're more than happy to bring more people to learn about the farm, because we've seen an rapidly growing on people interests, on people wanting to work on these farms and controlled environmental farms. So we want to keep on building those trainings and best practices. So very happy to contribute and to share with you.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, this is something that we all also discuss in other webinar, that one of the really good outputs from this webinar would be to identify the common interests of people who are speaking, as well as people who are attending, working in the similar area. And I think at STFC Food Network Plus, we can definitely facilitate some of this happening. So for instance, in our previous webinar, we had people presenting different platforms, digital platforms for connecting either farmers to the supply chain or farmers to farmers for peers learning. So we would be organizing some different working groups around platforms and what sort of data do we need to collect, what sort of data types and categories we need to collect for making sure that this platform is actually functional for farmers as well as for the retailers and for the other people who are using this platform. And I think in a similar way, from this webinar, what I'm taking back is that maybe we can organize another sort of deep dive sort of sessions with multiple sort of iterations of a document that can happen over the time to produce a best practice sort of training document for the students, which can be actually rolled out to different universities, not just one university. Yeah, we can share the knowledge and of the best practices coming from the different project and the different experiences that we have. And if anybody is interested to join in, they can feel free to chip in and provide their own experiences and all. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Are there any other thoughts, suggestions?
So maybe I'll jump in. So just see, this is a great opportunity. We can share our research. Also, that you mentioned the training, teaching. This is really important. So one point I would like to share is kind of collaborations, maybe joint funding together. So we can, using our expertise, you'll have an area, your expertise, then we can work together, solving some issues. There are lots of challenges on the vertical farming. So how we can solve it. So we can do joint teaching training programs. So we can apply maybe BBSRC, MTP as well. So there are some programs running BBSRC, the DTP training program, the other some joint program, we can doing joint proposal together. Research, definitely. I think government now really keen to develop this area, vertical farming, Innovate UK, and also the kind of BBSRC, STFC, DEFRO as well. There are lots of call for agri-food and smart farming. So yeah, it will be really good opportunity. We'll work together. Yeah.
Thank you, Chungwi. And I think maybe we could nominate a couple of you as like a lead for the working group, and then we can, make sure that the things move on after this webinar, because we don't want the conversations to end here after this webinar. We want this to start here, and we want this to develop this even further. So everybody who has put out the interest and who has attended this webinar will be invited to the working group. And if you feel like, you wanted to contribute and you wanted to participate, then feel free to join in our working group. Yeah.
Yeah, can I say
Yes,
one thing?
yes, feel free. We still have 15 more minutes for this
Okay.
open floor discussion.
Okay, actually, I'm a postdoctoral scientist at Imperial College London. So what we are doing that, we are giving the mechanical stimulation to plants to improve its agricultural productivity and the architecture also. And we strongly believe that this could be very useful for the vertical farming industry, which I already shared in the chat. So if anybody is interested to know more or collaborate or to have opportunity in their R&D, please contact me. We'll be happy to share our thoughts or collaborating. Yeah.
Thanks, Rit. Yeah, feel free to share your email ID as well. But other than this, that, by next week, hopefully, when one of our knowledge impact champion would be back to work, she is away at the moment, she will be able to connect you all through a document, and then we can start working on a common sort of theme and common working group on vertical farming. Yeah. But thanks, Rit. Feel free to put your email ID on the chat. Okay, any final thoughts, anyone? Not necessary questions, but yeah, any thoughts before we close? Well, if not, then thank you. Thank you, Eric, for hosting the meeting. Thank you to both the speakers for their insightful presentations. And thank you for all the participating audiences. You have provided really quite a good food for thoughts and a lot of discussions. And I'm so happy to see that hopefully we'll have a working group on vertical farming. And we can produce something really substantial after this webinar. Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining, and we hope to keep the conversations alive, and we hope to meet with you all very soon. Thank you. Thank you for all the direct messages as well. Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you.